Okay, good day, students. Welcome to our second lecture. So we are proceeding from the previous lecture on the introduction to microeconomics. So this connects us now. We're getting deeper into microeconomics. So today we are going to be talking about demand and supply. This is a very famous concept in economics. Like if you forget about everything else, about all other concepts, this is one of the concepts that you should not ever forget because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So what is demand and supply? This is an economic model amongst many other economic models. I shared that as well in the previous lecture about how we speak about economic models, how we create them, how we use them, and how we kind of apply those concepts to understand the real world issues. So the same case here. So this is one of those many models in economics whereby it's designed to explain how prices and the underlining is very purposeful. So it's designed to explain how prices are determined in certain types of markets. So we have prices and then we have markets. So price is like a very important unit. It's a very important object, key focus issue when it comes to demand and supply. It's what really brings these two together. It's how do we determine the price, because when you determine the price, then it kind of determines what to demand and what to supply. Okay. All right. So here, before we get to the demand and supply, as I said, price is key. You know, if you think about anything right now, about the economy, about any issue related to economy, what comes in your head or the unit that you can use to think about it is price. If you think about standard of living, if you think maybe it's easier or it's tough, it's harder. If we talk about recession, economic hardships, it is all reflected in terms of prices, is translated in form of prices. So if prices are very high, then it becomes expensive. It becomes less affordable to afford or to live through life. So price it has a huge role in the economy. Okay, but the next thing is markets. So these are the questions that rise up that we need to understand. So markets is another thing. So what are markets? What markets is where everything happens in terms of the economics. Okay, is where the exchange happens. So I want to know, how do markets work? So the different types of markets, the different characteristics or features of markets. So not all markets are the same, but the principle is the same, meaning that where there are markets, the main key activity is exchange or trading. So that is the main thing. There is buying and selling. So features can differ and types, but that is what happens in the market. So how do markets work and what factors influence the outcomes? And then who are the participants in the markets and what motivates them? So that's very important for us to really understand, as well as really, the broader concept of demand and supply model, how it works. There has to be people who participate. So who are the participants in these markets? What are the main factors that influence how much of a product consumers wish to buy? So this is where, in the market, as I say, there's a common activity that happens in every market, which is exchange, that is trading. Okay, there is one who sells and the other one who buys. So the seller is the producer, is the one who brings the commodity to the market, right? Is the producer, provider, is a supplier, right? And then the one who buys, the one who consumes, the one who is a consumer, is the one who demands, is the one who wants to take away. So that is a buyer, right? That is a buyer. So those are two parts of this market. So we want to know what influences each part and what would be the outcome. So for the consumer, the one who goes to the market to buy, what factors influence their decisions to buy. When you go to the market, you as a consumer, what happens in your mind or what happens in your life to predict the decisions or to make the decision that I'm going to buy 1, 2, 3, and I'm not going to buy 1, 2, and 3. And then the same case for the producer who brings things to the market. What characterizes, what factors influence that producer to make them make such decision that I'm going to produce or I'm going to supply this amount of goods to the market. Okay, so once you know that, all right. So what are markets? Markets, you can have plenty of definitions when you think about it. It could be a location. It could be, mostly you would think about a place where people buy and sell. But over time, things have evolved. And so we have vast amount of, scenarios where we could identify as marketplace or as markets. Before, it used to be people have to meet physically and like actual exchange of goods. How you would go to the market, to the actual market, to a supermarket, to a shop. So that's like a point of contact, right? It's a physical location, but things have evolved. There are different types of markets. Now you can buy online. You just have your gadget and just with the, just click, move items to the cart, and you have money in your account or in your credit card, and then you just debit card. We don't have credit card, so we use debit cards, and you pay, and then goods are probably going to be delivered to your door and things like that. So all that is markets. Okay, so when it comes to economics, to simplify that, we don't really use a location to define markets, but rather what happens there. So a market is a collection of traders or a group of buyers and sellers with the potential to trade or to exchange with each other. That's as simple as it can be. Okay. So for us to best understand market, as I say, there are many types and forms of markets. If you think about, there's a market that strictly just exchanges commodities, right? Like physical goods. And then there are markets that exchange services. If you want certain services, you go to a certain market. That is just strictly for the exchange of services. And then, so that means if you want to supply your services or you want to buy services, you go to that kind of market. And then if you want to just buy and sell money, there are money markets. So money markets, it's just strictly money, whether different currencies, some currencies, is just money markets. So mostly financial institutions and such institutions would be more into exchange of money. Okay, so but also you could also look at it from just the aspect of not just nature of products, but rather in nature of one single thing. So you could just want to look at, the market for, let's say, electronics. So that could be just, it's a product, but it's a specific product. Okay. It could be an item. It could be just one service. Like I want to study how, the market for like IT service, right? Or internet service. I want to understand how does it work. So here, this is just a model, a simple model. We call it a circular flow model. It's a simple model that kinds of help or, illustrates two different types of markets and how they interact with each other. And why these markets is because this is just the simplest form for you to understand, because this is like the basis for you to understand how market works. Okay. So we call it a circular flow model. Okay. As I said, we are going to have a lot of models, but the idea is you're using a smaller, simple terminology or concept to understand how the real world works. So here we want to see how two types of markets interact with each other. So one kind of market is called product market, and the other one is called resource market. Okay, so product market, let me just, here, if you look at this diagram, at the bottom is where the product market. So the product market is the market where It's the exchange of goods and services, products, okay, is where it happens. And then factor market or resource market is where the exchange of factors of production happens, or the exchange of resources. Remember, resources are the factors of production, right? Capital, labor, land, entrepreneurship, okay? So how do these two interact, okay? If you understand this, and so this shows how the exchange of goods, services, factors of production, and the payments for that exchange, how it happens, okay? So you can start from anyhow, all right? So let's start with the product market, because probably this is maybe easier for you to think about, or we can also start with factor, however way. So think about, okay, there are two other elements here. So these are the kind of the sources, okay, or the links to these markets, or the key actors, I would say, that work in these markets, or work to make this market successful, okay? So remember, when you talked about markets, there have to be participants, two sides, buyers and sellers. So businesses or firms and households are the participants. So one is going to be a buyer at some point, another one is going to be a seller in one of the market, and the other one they're going to also exchange. One is going to be a seller, another one is going to be a buyer. Okay, so let's slowly start with our factor market, because before you have goods and services to bring to the market to sell, you need first to produce them, okay? So I think it will be best to first start on the production process. How does it happen? So the exchange, or the market process, the exchange starts from the factors of production, because you need them. So the businesses are the ones who own the resources or factors of production, because they're the ones who run things, who produce goods, but they don't own them from the start, okay? They need to acquire these resources from either themselves or from somewhere else, okay? So that process of acquiring, okay, they need to get it from the households. So households are the owners of factors of production. So households have labor, have land, capital, entrepreneurial ability. This is the source of the resources or factors of production. So firms need to go to households and hire those services, okay? So this arrow here, okay, this is households supplying their resources, their factors of production. Okay, so if they go to the office to work, they go to the farm to farm, or they rent out. They might have a piece of land, a building for rental. So they offer those services to businesses. Okay, so businesses will pay them back. Okay, will pay them back. So to get those services. Okay, so this process, they get to the households go to the marketplace for factors or for resources. They sell their services and firms buy those services. Then they go to produce, they go to the industry. So the factors of production, they do produce, okay? So as the process of production, they will incur costs, okay, to the business. So that cost, part of that cost is the money that is paid out to salaries, okay? So I hope this top part is very clear, all right? I'm going to repeat one more time. Households, they give their services, their resources, okay? They go to the marketplace and give their services. Businesses, they buy them, okay? They buy labor, they hire land, they take it to the factory, they take it to the office and produce goods. In the process of producing goods, they are going to incur costs. So they're going to pay for the cost. Some of the costs that are being paid to cover for wages, rent, all that, some of that also is the income that goes to the households. Okay, so that is what happens in the factor market. Now, after the production has happened, okay? We said we need to produce goods and services. So goods and services are being produced. They can't go here because this is the market for factors of production. So goods have their own market. That is the product market. So goods and services are taken to the market, all right? Whereby these businesses and firms, they are going to sell these products. Who are they selling to? Who are the buyers? It's the households. So households come to the market and buy the final goods and services, okay? So households will buy these goods and services and take them to their homes, all right? So think about a person who works in a beverage company, okay? So a person who works in a beverage company, they give their labor, their effort to work in a, let's say in a beer company, okay? Or in a soda company, okay? Fresh drinks. And then they get their payment, right? For working at that breweries. And then at the end of the day, they go to the market, all right? In the evening when they're tired and exhausted, they go to a bar. And then they buy some drinks to refresh. So that is, they are also the consumer of that good. So when they buy the good, they pay for that good. So what they're paying, we call it consumption expenditure. They're expending. So they get the good in exchange for the money that they pay, okay? So who wants a beer or a soda will have to pay out to get the beer or a soda. So the firm collects that money, that is called revenue. So all sales from the product market is what is called revenues, okay? So this is the income to the business. All right. So businesses, again, will use this revenue from the sales to cover the costs, which of the costs include the money that they're going to pay to the salaries and all other expenses. Okay. So this is a nutshell which explains how markets work in a simple model of product markets and resource markets. To make it a bit to make it a bit complex, or maybe to kind of modify it and bring in more factors, would be where you include maybe the government coming in as another actor. You bring financial institutions here where there is money being traded. So you are introducing money markets. You would introduce government as another actor. So that would be also, maybe you could also introduce import and export market. So whereby people are not just trading. Here we are assuming everything is being produced and consumed locally. There is no any, money that goes out or goods that go out of the economy. So that this is a simplest assumption, but in the real world, there is a lot of commodities that are being produced. There are many product markets. There are many different types of factor markets, but also there are money markets and so many other markets. So it would be very confusing to have everything here together. So we want you to understand this concept and then just kind of just understand how it would work in the complex real world situation. Okay. So now coming back now to demand. Okay. So this concept is very important because now you see, okay, in the market, there are participants who are buyers and sellers, right? So what is a demand? Okay, so demand, if you look it up into the Google, if you Google the word, the definition, Google dictionary or something like that, you will just find, when someone says demand, it's just like, just a simple state of wanting something. It's when I say I demand something, I want something, okay? Or you desire something. So that is just a basic definition, a pure want for something, a pure desire, a pure wish, or, you want to have something, you want to get something, okay? So that is what you would think about. But now when it comes to economics, if we would use that concept demand to mean that way, would get lost into understanding it. So here we don't really use that, because just think about it. If that was to mean demand, that means if I ask you, think about anything you want right now, anything you desire, you would have a whole big list of things. And that could change. In the morning, you would have a different list. In the afternoon, you would have a different list, okay? So we don't just want you to have some long list of things you desire to have or want to have. We want you to make a step further, right? So we want to know, okay, we want you to get to a point where we want to know if you have a long list of things you desire to have, why don't you have them? Okay. So we realize that you probably have a huge, endless list of things you desire to have, the things you would like to have, but you do not have them because you have some limitation, you have some constraints. Okay. So if I ask you, you want, right now, maybe you want to have certain kind of a dress, you have certain kind of a shirt, maybe you want to have a certain kind of a meal, you want certain kind of a lifestyle, you want certain kind of a mobile phone to have a certain model, but why don't you have them? So it will go like, I can't buy what I just want. I can't buy everything I want, or even those things that I want in my list. Why? Because you are being constrained. Constrained is like you're limited. Okay. So there are two things when we think about that. So one is that you have to pay for that thing. So that thing you want and desire, you can't just have it because it has a price. It has a price. So the question is, that price determines whether you can buy it or not. It determines your buying power. Okay. And then the second thing is your spending power, which is limited by your budget. So first, the price of something tells you whether you can have it or not based on what you have. Okay. Your income, your earning, your budget, okay, towards whatever that you have to buy or consume. So we say that you are being faced with constraints. You have certain needs and wants and desires, but you're faced with constraints. So whenever we talk about now demand in economics, we bring those two in the picture, that you have something you want to buy, and then you have constraints. We can't just talk about things you desire and want without talking about constraints. So demand in economics is the two things coming together. You have a whole list of desired things, wants, wishes, and then you have constraints, which are in form of price and your budget. So how are you going to move from there? You need to make decisions now in the face of this, okay? You have to make a decision. Given the budget and the price that I have, what am I willing, okay, and able to purchase or to pay for, to buy, okay, to acquire certain things. So here, again, from what we covered previously, this is where now a question of choice comes in. You are confronted with a choice, okay? You have to make a choice. What am I going to buy? What am I going to purchase? And what is going to be the cost of me purchasing, which is the opportunity cost, okay? So that is basically it. So demand here comes now with the purchasing, the opportunity cost, the cost of you choosing whatever you desire. So whatever you buy, that is what we call them quantity demanded. That is the amount that you demand at that opportunity cost. Okay. So here, every purchase that you encounter will confront you with an opportunity cost. Okay. You have to make a decision. Okay. And then you have to choose. You have to choose now to buy in any market. That is where now demand becomes viable. Okay, so these are some of the key concepts when you think about demand. So quantity demanded, this is the quantity of a good that all buyers in a market would choose to buy during a period of time given their constraints, you see. So these words are very key. What you choose to buy at a point in time given the constraints that are present, okay? The law of demand, so we have the law of demand, okay? This says that when price of a good rises and everything else remains the same, the quantity of the good demanded will fall. So what does this mean? It's just a very simple concept, okay? Don't even think hard about it. Right now, okay, if something is expensive, you are used to using something, okay? Let's say electricity, you're used to buy 90 units of electricity, maybe for 10,000, okay? 90 units for 10,000. It's enough supply for the whole month. You can use it anyhow. You don't care. But all of a sudden, the price per unit increases. Okay, it doubles. So now you will need 20,000 to buy the same units, okay, of electricity to take you 1 month. So that means electricity has become expensive. So if it is expensive, then you might sit down and think like, hold up a minute. I don't have that money to buy. My budget is not enough to cover me 20,000 for the same unit. So I'm going to buy less of this item, and I'm going now to manage my use. So before I could leave the radio on, I could leave the TV on and never care. So now I could use the AC, and this is just an example, okay? What uses of electricity would you use before? Now you're like, I need to cut back the uses so that I can consume lesser units because it's become expensive. What does this tell us? Is that when the price of something increases, you will demand less of that commodity because it's become expensive. It's become less affordable, okay? Because your income is the same. That's why now we talk about everything else. Remember, there's this condition. Everything else remains the same. So here we are assuming your life is the same as before. Your income is still the same. You're still a student. You're still living in the same apartment. You have no change, but the price has changed for something you use constantly. So you have to see now, how do I reduce my usage? Okay. If internet bundle increases, the price of internet bundle that you use for your phone, okay, you usually use maybe on weekly basis or on monthly basis, all of a sudden the price just skyrocket to like 2 times the price. Are you going to maintain the same use? Not really, because your budget is still, your income is the same. You have no other means to adjust. So what are you going to do? You're going to reduce the bundle, or you're going to reduce the uses so that you can continue affording what you can afford. Okay, so that is simply the law. We don't expect to be different until there is a specific case. So what we would expect in any other market, the law of demand is that when prices are high, people consume less. The quantity demanded will decrease. When the price is low, more people will flock into that product and buy more of that because it's cheaper. Remember, all other factors should be constant. This is a very important condition, and we will see why. Okay, so demand schedule is just a list that shows the quantities of goods and consumers would choose. Like this one here, this is the demand schedule, shows the prices and quantity demanded that are consumed or demanded, is how price changes. And then the demand curve is now the graphical representation of the demand schedule. So this one shows the respective prices and quantity. So what is more likely or expected of the demand curve demand curve shape is that it's a negatively slope curve. Okay, so you will see that because it has a negative relationship. Prices and quantity demanded have a negative relationship. Here, the price is quite high. You demand less. As the price is going down, more is being demanded. Here is the cheapest, so you see even more people are consuming, or more items are being consumed for that particular commodity. Okay, so there are 2 different things here when we talk about demand. Very important concept that you should not mix them up. Okay, so there is one concept called change in quantity demanded versus change in demand. Okay, so here, make sure you don't mix the English, you understand, and just put it in your memory card in your brain, not to forget. Okay, so the 2 concepts here, very simple. There's change in quantity demanded and change in demand. How do they work? So change in quantity demanded, you see here, is just the normal presentation, okay, like this one, whereby the changes happen along the curve due to price. It's like what happens to quantity demanded when price changes, other factors being constant. Okay, so let's say you were here. What happens when price increases? So if price increases, it's going to be a bit more expensive for this product. So people will reduce consumption. So you will move from this point, people reduce consumption to this point because price has increased from 0.7 to 0.8. So the movement of quantity demanded from 400 to 650, it has happened, but is along the same curve. It's just gone upwards or downward, but is along the same curve. Okay, so movement in the quantity demanded is changing, but is along the same curve, either upward or downward. Okay, because the only change is price and other factors are constant. What happens when there's a shift? So this shift is when now you completely draw another curve. Okay, you draw another demand curve. That means it has moved, it has shifted to the other direction, lower or upper. So what happens? This is when other factors, okay, apart from price. So here price is the same, but other factors have changed that have caused quantity demanded to change. Okay, so these are some of the examples that would cause a shift. Okay, let's look at this. Let's just take an example. Okay, this is a market for peanut butter. Okay, if you probably use peanut butter, siagi ya karanga, right? For bread, for cooking, for different things. Okay, so peanut butter prices, we assume these are the prices. This is just a table from the book, but it's not saying peanut butter, but just for the purpose of understanding. So these are the prices for one jar, I would have said jar or bottle of peanut butter. These are the different price levels. And then this is the quantity demanded that would be demanded by individuals in this market. Now we assume that the average income of the people who are buying peanut butter have an average income of $40,000 per year. This is $40,000. So we say that almost every consumer gets this income, okay, on average. So given their income, it's just like me saying every student gets a boom. I want to see how RD University or how University of Dar es Salaam students and purchase peanut butter. So I have to see what is the average income of every student. So I would have to look at your boom on average. What is your boom if everyone gets the same income? So I would go like maybe it's 1 million per semester or 1 million per month. Per month, it's a bit easier to calculate, or, you know, so that means I will be able to now tell. So this is what, for every price level, the level of quantity demanded. So if price is at $1 per bottle or per jar, 75,000 units are demanded, are being bought by students, okay, in the university in campus. If the price increases to $2, 60,000 will be bought. So as you see going down, as the price increases, less and less people are buying peanut butter. Why? Because it's getting expensive, and not everyone will want to stick to peanut butter. People might go for jam or just eating bread alone. It's not a must because it's getting expensive, right? They cannot afford it. So, but let's say, okay, at the same price has not changed. Neither, but neither quantity demanded, but you get an increase in your income. So for students, an increase in income is your boom money. So let's say the government or your parents give you a raise, all of you, okay? on average, everybody gets a raise maybe from the government. Your income doubles or your income increases by a certain percentage. So your boom has increased from an average of 40,000, it increases to 50,000. That means you have more money, right? So more money or more income gives you more purchasing power. Okay, so price is still the same, but you have more money. So that means, okay, that means you are able to buy more units. Even when price is the same, okay, you are able to buy more units. So let's say here at 3 units, this was at $3 before change of income, people would buy 50,000 bottles of peanut butter in this market. But since income increased to 50,000, now you have more people who will still buy it. Okay, because people have money now. It was expensive for some here, but now people have money. There is money increase. They are going to afford, because the people who stopped using peanut butter because it increased beyond their budget. But now they have more money, so more people will still buy it. So you will see that same price at $3. Now, instead of 50,000, you have 70,000. So if we bring this to the table and draw this new curve of this new demand, this is what we are going to have, something like this. So at the same price, you have more people demanding more. So this shift of demand curve is due to the increase in income. Okay? The shift is due to the increase in income. So we have not touched on price. Price is the same, but income has changed. So this is whereby, remember here, move along the same curve. This is due to change in price. All other factors are constant. Price changes, it affects what demanded. Here, price is the same, but quant demanded changes because other factors apart from price have changed. What are other factors? One of them is income. Another thing, it could be preferences or tastes. Sometimes people will, the price is the same, but people will buy more because it is the most preferred thing. Like I would say, the brands of the phone brands like Samsung or iPhone. Whenever there's a new brand, you wonder, people will just buy. The price is still the same or the price is higher, but more people still buy. Why? Because of the preference. People love to associate with, these quality goods or trendy things. Okay, so those are the other factors that we talk about. Okay, so these are the examples of different factors that cause this shift in the demand curve that you need to know. And you need to know what would happen to the change of that factor to cause the rightward shift, and what would happen to cause a leftward shift. So a leftward is when there is a decrease, while a rightward is where there is an increase in quantity demanded. Okay, so these are the factors. So income is when the income increased, we have said that it will shift outwards. But when income falls, when people's income fall down, that means even when the price has not changed, they will consume less because they don't have enough to cover the budget. Normal goods and inferior goods. So you have to know, when the good is normal, it's just the same reaction. Like people with change in income, people will demand more. But inferior goods are those goods that when people's income increase, they stop consuming those things. Okay, so maybe right now you are eating rice and beans because your income is smaller. Okay, most of you probably are just consuming rice and beans. But when your income increases, rice and beans become an inferior good because now you are moving to eating meat and fish, okay, every day. You're having more varieties and you eat less of beans. So for you, beans it could be now it becomes an inferior good because now you can afford better meals. Maybe you can have other kind of varieties. Okay, so any good that the more income increases, we expect that you would use more, but it's going the other direction. Remember, that is an inferior good. A normal good is just the normal way that, income increases, it goes this way. So I want you to go and see the behavior of each of these. They are also in the textbook. How every behavior of this, if I ask you, for instance, what would happen to the demand curve? Okay, what would happen to the demand curve if the price of a substitute of that good decreased? What would happen to the demand curve if the substitute of a commodity, of this commodity, decreased? So you have to know, when I say what happens in the demand curve, first you need to know, is that a movement along or the shift? So if the price of a substitute is the price of the other good, so this is the change in the other factor. So that means I'm talking about the shift in the demand curve. But how do you know whether the shift is forward or the shift is backwards? You have to know the price of substitute is the price that is opposite. Let's say if you like Pepsi, the substitute would be Coke. That means if I have Coke, I'm good. So if you are used to consuming Pepsi, it's 1,000 shillings. You wake up tomorrow, you go to the shop and it's 1,500, but Coca-Cola is still 1,000. If you don't mind to use any of them, they are perfect substitutes. That means you will consume more of Coca-Cola. You will go and buy Coca-Cola because you went to the shop with just 1,000 and now they're telling you can get Pepsi because it's 1,500. What happens? You go like, you have Coke, how much? 1,000. Okay, give me Coke. So that means the quantity, the price, remember, okay, remember, that we're talking about the price of substitute, okay? So now ask yourself, what am I asking here? The price of substitute has decreased, okay? So remember here, you need to stick to first, where are you? The good that you want to consume, if it is Pepsi, if it's 1,000, that means the price of substitute, if it's Coca-Cola, it has decreased. That means it's 500 shillings, okay? That means it has become cheaper. Will you still buy Pepsi? No, you can get 2 Coca-Cola with 1,000. So that means your demand curve will shift this way, backwards, because you will decrease your demand, quantity demanded of Pepsi, and increase the demand of Coca-Cola. So for Pepsi, we'll see a fall in demand, quantity demanded. But price is still 1,000. It's only the price of the other one that has decreased, okay? The substitute, all right? So that's why here you see in this table here, the price of substitute, when it's decreasing, this shift is towards this way because the quantity demanded of Pepsi will decrease and then more people will buy more Coca-Cola. I hope that makes sense. So whenever I ask you any question of this, just try to think, what am I asking? What factor? Is it income? Is it wealth? How does it affect, usually? How does it affect the consumer or the buyer? Okay, does it affect this way or that way? And then now you bring it to the curve and then you show the impact, okay? All right, so let's look at the supply side. So supply side now, so demand was all about consumers, how their price affect their decisions. Okay, we said consumers or buyers, you want something, you really, really need something, okay? You are going to the shop, you want to buy so many things, but then you're being constrained. Price limits you, your budget or your wallet, your income limits you. You have to make a choice and incur an opportunity cost. So you are determining what you're going to buy, the amount that you're going to buy, the quantity demanded based on the price that is given. That is on the demand side. The supply side, on the other hand, looks at the participant, okay? Who supplies, who brings the goods? So what happens to the supplier? Okay, so when we think about the word supplier, usually we think about what? Availability of something, right? It's basically simply what is available, what is there, right? Do we have enough supply? That means, is it available? In as simple as that. But now that can be, it can be subjective when you think about supply, amount of something available. Is it fixed? Is it open-ended? Okay, so you'll find that it's not really the case especially when it comes to economics. Okay, there are constraints. Not everything is just available anytime, anywhere. No, it's not like that. When you go to the market, there is only, the size of that market, the size of that cubicle, it's just limited. So the supplier, in as much as he or she wants to bring in goods to the market, as many as possible, and sell to whoever wants, is also limited. Okay, it's limited. Why? Okay, why are they limited? So we see that first, what guides their choices is a supplier. So whoever that supplies goods and services to the market, okay, they have a very specific goal. They don't just go about and collect goods, go through production, make beautiful goods, incredible services, just for nothing. They have a goal. A goal is, as they bring those goods to the market and supply them or sell them, in exchange, they can get good profit, as maximum as possible, as highest as possible. Okay, that means they want to sell, get revenues, cover their costs, and get as much profit as possible. Okay, this is basic trade. Okay, if you're a producer, if you're an entrepreneur, I think this is just the basic idea. Okay, if you start a business, you will have two things. You will have sales. Okay, three things actually. You have sales, you want to get customers and sell your products and get revenues. So revenues is what you get from sales. And then you'll have costs to incur. You have paid for electricity, you have paid for equipment, you have to pay for laborers, people who assist you, people you work with, you have to pay them salaries and all that and all that. But at the end of the day, you want to take your revenues, you minus your costs and get what remains, which is what we call profit. Okay, so you want that, we would want for you, or you as a supplier, the goal of every producer, every entrepreneur, is that remaining money, that profit, should be as high as possible. Okay, so that is basically that. But now it's not as easy as you think. Okay, there are constraints to achieving goal, and that those constraints are the ones that now kind of limit to how much they should really actually bring to the market. Okay, so one of these constraints is price. So you find that it's more profitable for producers, for sellers, to set as higher price as possible. If you sell something, if you have an experience to go to the market to meet producers who will tell you a price from their mouth, usually they start at a very high price. Bargaining markets, yeah, there are markets where if you go to a supermarket, they have price tags, everything is already priced. You can't really, I know there are some of you who still negotiate even for things with price tags. It's fine. It's fine, but not fine, but it's fine if you still have that, that audacity. But what I'm trying to say is there are those markets where, maybe especially if they're thrift shops, secondhand goods, or, where you kind of, you have that room. It's not fixed on a commodity. You can still talk. This is very common in African markets, Tanzania, our local markets and things like that. So you can talk. By that, most times, the buyer will want as lowest price as possible, okay, because that's the one they could afford. But then the producer or the seller will start with the highest price as possible, because the more it's costly, the higher the price, the higher the profit. Okay, so unfortunately, producers do not have that control over the prices always. Like you don't just wake up and say, I'm going to charge this money. So most times, depending on the nature of a market, especially competitive market, we'll see them much later. We'll see that competitive markets where there are many sellers in the market, the prices are also given. They are known. You can't really manipulate price. You cannot set your own price. I'll give you an example. It's like maize flour. Maize flour, you use it for ugali, for food, cooking ugali and something like that. So there are so many suppliers of maize flour. Maize flour is a staple food. Maize flour is known. So right now, I think everybody almost knows the price of maize flour, 1 kilo of maize flour. So if I'm a producer, if I have a lot of kilos, a lot of maize flour that I'm bringing to the market, and go like, everybody's charging 2,000 shillings per kilo, but my flour is unique, is different. I just want to make more profit from my flour. So I'm going to charge 3,000 per kilo. My friend, nobody will really buy from you because they have so many other places to buy. So such kind of a market is called a competitive market, or perfect competition market. Okay. So for such kind of markets, a producer has no influence on price. Because you have no influence of price, you're being constrained. You can't just charge anyhow. Okay. So the other constraint is costs. So in as much as you want to charge higher profit, you want to, to benefit from your supplied goods, you can't really do that because the costs are going to affect you. You have to, out of your sales, you have to cover the cost. So costs can be fluctuating, costs can change, costs can affect you. So that is always, you have to meet your costs. So the higher your costs are, the lower your profits are going to be. So that is always going to be constraining you. So all these things, I'm explaining a bit much about this. I know I should just pass quickly, but it's a foundation, because just in few chapters after, we are going to be talking about costs, about production, about different markets and how producers and consumers behave. So please pay attention to all this I'm saying and just understand these constraints, because that is how we're going to talk about profit maximization, price, cost determination. So this is a foundation for all that. Okay, so that means at the end of the day, the costs will be determined from the kind of production process that one uses. And now, because of that, because of these constraints, price and cost of production, as a business, as a supplier, as a firm, they have to kind of consider how much am I going to choose to supply? Okay, how much am I going to choose to supply to this market, considering my prices and costs? So there is an opportunity cost as well, right? Because you're supplying at a cost. Okay, so you choose to sell. So now when it comes to that, supplying is not just what is available. We move from the normal definition of supply, meaning what is available. We come to economics. We consider supply as amount that a supplier or a producer or a firm chooses to sell or to supply. I think selling is much better because we're still using supply. So what they choose to sell or to provide to the market, to sell, is much better, given the existing constraints. So those two situations coexist. Okay, so again, simple definitions to help us working with supply. Quantity supplied now is that specific amount of a good that all sellers in the market choose to sell over some type of period, given the constraints. I've said that. The law of supply now. The law of supply here, as I've said, when the prices are higher, it's more profitable. So more quantity will be supplied to the market, or you sell more when the price is higher. So remember, ceteris paribus. This is it's a Greek terminology, ceteris paribus, or some say ceteris paribus. What it means is that all things remain the same. Everything else remains the same. All other factors are the same. When price of a good rises, the quantity of goods that will be supplied will also rise. So that is a positive relationship. So when you draw the curve, we'll have a positive, increasing slope, okay? An increasing slope. So this is a supply curve, and this is a supply schedule where you have a list of prices and respective quantities. All right, so how about now the movements along the curve? Okay, I want to see the change in quantity supplied versus the change in supply. So again, change in quantity supplied is when the movement is along the curve. This is where change in price causes a change in quantity demanded. So this is just like this one, okay? If price was at $6, you could buy 2 units. If the price increase, sorry. Oops. This is not buying, this is selling. We're talking about supply, it's producers. So for a producer, when price is at $6, they will sell 2 goods. When the price increases to $9, that means more supply. So they will increase their supply from 2 to 3. Okay, so the change in quantity supplied will move from this point here, will move to this point. So this is a change in quantity demanded. This change has happened along the same curve, okay? It could also go this way, could go this way, could go this way. So this change has not shifted anything. It's just along the curve because of changes in price. Okay, so quantity demanded is changing due to change in price. All other factors are constant. So this is what we call change in quantity supplied. The movement is along the curve. But when there is a shift, okay, a whole curve moves from one to another. This is where now we say change in supply. This is when quantity demanded changes because of other factors, due to changes in other factors, while price is still the same, okay? So at the same price is at 80 units, you are supplying 20 units. Then price is at 80, maybe in 3 months' time, something changes, another factor. So here another factor would be cost of production, okay? So cost of production, maybe electricity, you use a lot of electricity to supply or to produce 20 units at $80 price, $80 price, okay? So let's say in 3 months' time, electricity became so much cheaper. So instead of whatever you are spending on, you are spending a lot of money on electricity, you have now a relief. So now you are able to produce even more goods, but price is still the same, but you are bringing more goods to the market because the cost of electricity or the cost of production has decreased so much. So the supply will shift from this point to this point. But has price changed? No, price is still the same. It's only the price of other factor, which is the price of input cost or price of electricity or price of cost of production. They're all the same, okay? So what are the other many factors that can cause a shift? So this shift can be this way or it can be this way. So if there is a decrease, what is a scenario that can cause a decrease or a fall in supply curve? That would be if cost of production increases. So let's say electricity increases or there is electricity power cuts, like, mgao or umeme. So when there's electricity power cuts or electricity rationing, you will incur more costs because now you have to use a generator, or you have to have delays, so many things. You have to incur a lot of costs. Maybe you have to work overnight or something like that. So price is going to be the same of the product, but then you're incurring so many costs. So instead of producing the same 20 units, you will decrease production to this. So you have another curve here. You'll be producing, let's say, 15 units only, because your costs are now higher. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So this is just a summary to show you what kind of other factors that shift the supply curve. So if the price of input, we have talked about that like electricity goes lower, decreases, goes like this. When price of inputs, like electricity, increases, then it goes this way. So these are other reasons, when the price of alternatives, number of firms, okay? So this means you need to go to the textbook and read about this. They're very easy to explain and understanding. So it should be very easy for you to break it down. So if I ask you a question, let's say, what happens to the supply curve when when there are more firms that produce that commodity, so, and when there's an increase of firms producing the same commodity. So let's say you had 500 firms producing a certain commodity, and now you have 1,500. That means a lot of firms have increased. So when more firms increase, there's more supply. So the shift will be towards this way. So you need to know, what am I talking about, and what does that cause? Is that a movement along the curve, or the shift? If it's the shift, which direction? Is it towards the rightward, or is it a leftward shift? Okay. All right. So after we have now understood demand separately and then supply, we now bring them together. Okay. Because a market must involve the interaction of buyers and sellers. So we have been studying the factors. Remember where we started? We started here. Who are the participants in the markets and what motivates them? We have seen them, right? That there are two participants who are, one is buyers, the other one sellers. The demand side and supply side. What are the factors influencing them? We have seen there is price, there is quantity demanded, there are other factors, right? So now they come together, and I want to see what happens when now they come to the market. That means they are interacting. Okay, so is there going to be peace while they're trading, or is going to be chaos? Why am I saying chaos or peace? Because if you saw, the buyer always wants the price to be lower, right? The buyer wants it cheaper, but the producer or the seller wants it higher. Like, the prices have to be as higher as possible. That is when the seller enjoys. So that argument, are they ever going to come to a point of, peace, where they can, okay, I'm okay with this price. I'm okay with this quantity. And then the other one also says the same. I'm charging this price, I'm okay with it, and you can take, I'm okay to supply or to sell to you this amount of quantity. So from our normal experience, I think that so much happens in every, I don't think if you have ever found a market where people are fighting every day, that would not really be a way, right? So in our markets, it's a peaceful exchange, always and every day, right? You go to the market, whether the prices are already given or it's a negotiation, it always ends up peacefully, whereby, a sale is being made. Maybe not to this customer, maybe to the other one. But eventually, there is that exchange that continues over and over, right? So what happens really when these things come together, supply and demand? So we have something like this, okay? I think these all words that I was saying are kind of, so we have a term called equilibrium. So equilibrium is where now people strike a deal. You have this point here, okay? So we have a demand curve, and then we have a supply. So everyone has their own price. So this is the price. Let's say, let's stick to our peanut butter bottle, or let's just stick to that. So peanut butter, you want a certain price and a certain quantity as a buyer. And then the producer or the seller who produces also sets the certain price. So you will see that each one of you will start with different reactions to price. But at the end of the day, you will get to a point where it's stable. That means this is an agreeable price and quantity that each one of you is willing to either consume or buy, and the other one is willing to sell. That is the price level where the buyer is willing to buy and the seller is willing to sell at that price. They can settle at that price. So equilibrium is a state of steadiness, right? It's a state of steadiness, of balance, okay? So this is where now that level of price brings together the buyer and the seller to a point where they can actually exchange. So we want to arrive at this point. So any point outside of this point of equilibrium is like unstable. It's like a weighing balance. Mzani is not balanced. So we're going to see when it's not balanced, something will put pressure until the balance is achieved. If it's not balanced, something will put pressure until the balance is achieved. So let's see, for instance, a point here. This is $1. You know, this is the cheapest price for this bottle of peanut butter. So let's say the peanut butter price goes lower to $1 per bottle. So if it's cheaper, who enjoys the most? If the price is cheaper, who enjoys the most? It's the buyer, right? Consumer. So the demand curve you see here, it has negative relationship. So more people, you see more bottles will be demanded, quantity demanded. So you have 7,500 cells, quantity demanded, right? But at this price, this is too low for supplier, okay? This is too low for supplier. So the supplier is like, I know there are 7,500 people that want peanut butter, but I'm not going to supply that. That is too cheap for me. What I am going to supply to that market is only 2,500 units. Okay? So what happens? What do you think happens? This price of $1, the supplier can only bring 2,500 units to the market. People who can afford, who are ready to pay for this $1 at 7,500, they have a long line. They have formed a long line outside the shop. They want to buy. They are 7,500. Okay, so what will happen is that you have excess demand because more people are demanding, but less is being supplied. What happens here? In those people who are queuing on the line for $1, some will say, you know, nobody can get, not everyone is going to get what is there, the 2,500 peanut butters. So what do? There'll be fewer people who will say, I'm willing to pay more than $1. I can pay $1.25. I can pay $1.6. So people will be putting pressure, will be willing to pay more, a little bit more to get a peanut butter. Okay, so they will put pressure. They will tell the shopkeeper, okay, there's some of us who are going to pay you more, please. So as you see, there will be a pressure to increase price. So as price is increasing, slowly increasing, it will be reducing this gap. It will be reducing this gap because now, you know, when the price is increasing, less people are demanding that product. If the supplier charges, let's say $2 or $3, those people who cannot afford that will go from the line. Fewer will remain. So until a point where, let's say this is now $3, okay? This is the point where those who are in line, okay, here, right? Maybe this is this could be 4,000, let's say. So the people are queuing in the line is 4,000, and the supplier is satisfied that at $3 I can bring my goods. I can bring my goods to 4,000 units. So that agreement of the supplier to bring 4,000 units and the people who are demanding to be 4,000 at the same price, that is where we say that is the market equilibrium that is achieved. So that is how, we take it, or we assume that how this is how the market works to kind of offset itself to a point of equilibrium from wherever it starts. If you start from here, if the price is too high, let's say it's $6 or $5 per peanut butter, what do you think happens? So if it's too high, just go and track your demand supply. Demand supply is here. That means there are fewer people who can afford. So the quant demanded will be this unit, like let's say maybe 2,800. But the supply is happy with higher prices. So I have more, I can produce more, I have so much in stock. They enjoy when the prices are high. But then there will be a gap. There will be an excess supply. What is supplied is so much. So goods are just there. There are a lot of them in the supermarkets, in the shops, but no one is able to afford. No one is able to buy. So that excess supply will put a pressure. So there are some suppliers who will go like, it's too expensive for people to buy. I'm going to lower my price. So instead of selling at $6, I'm going to make it cheap. I'm going to sell for $4. So there'll be pressure to lower the price. So some suppliers might start reducing price. When they start reducing price, remember, the lower the price, more quantity demanded. So people will start to afford. Their people will start to afford up to a point where those people, all people who demand the product and those who are supplying can settle at a price that they can both exchange fully. Okay, so that is where now we achieve that. Okay, so I think, yeah, that basically summarizes all that I was talking about. Okay, so this is where excess supply is the case for excess supply. We have just covered that. Now, what happens when there's a shift? So we talked about the shift in demand when it was just one curve demand. And then we talked about the shift in supply when it's just one curve. Okay, so when there is an equilibrium, when there happens a shift, what happens? Okay, so a shift can be either by supply can shift like towards this side or this side, or demand can also shift towards this side or this side, right? Also, both of them can shift. What do I mean? Supply can change and then demand can also change. So, for instance, we saw that change in weather condition can shift the supply curve. So let's say there are heavy rains. Heavy rains has affected production. Okay, so that means supply will fall, will decrease. Decrease in supply is a shift backwards, right? And then at the same time, okay, at the same time that has happened, income has increased. So people's income has increased. We also, like, the economic situation has boomed. So at the same time, while the supply curve shifts this way, remember, increase in income shift the demand side towards this side. So that is a double shift, but it's different curves shifting. So the question now is, what is going to be the new equilibrium level whenever there's a shift, whether one or two? Okay, so this is an example where the weather condition example. So when the weather condition changes, right? So let's say I've said heavy rains have probably destroyed crops. So the supply, what the farm would bring to the market has decreased to 3,500 units. We're talking about peanuts, right? Peanuts is karanga. So peanut butter, you need peanuts. So maybe if the rains have been bad, that means less production of peanuts are available in the market to process to make the peanut butter, right? So the decrease in the units, so the equilibrium level, this was the equilibrium price and quantity. So at this $3 before the shift, this is what they sold as a producer, and then this is what consumers bought, right? But with now bad weather, there's a decrease, there's a shift, which is a decrease in quantity supplied. What happens to the price? So if the price is the same, okay, at $3, but supply has decreased, so that means we'll move from here to, this is the new level, right? The new interaction, okay? Okay, so at $3, but it's not the equilibrium, because at $3, there is the demand. Look here, if I am to draw the line here, okay, here, if I'm to draw the line here, this would be at $3, this would be the quantity that would be supplied, right? If I'm to trace this down. But demand, this is the demand curve. So at $3, we're still here. This is the amount that is demanded. So with the shift in supply, that means people who are demand 5,000 units, but supply is 1,000 units, okay? That is the decline in supply from 5,000 to 1,000 at $3 price of peanut butter. So what does this mean? That means quantity demanded is higher than quantity supplied. There will be an excess what? An excess demand. What do we say when there's an excess demand? Okay, when there is an excess demand, there is pressure to increase price. Remember from this one, right? When there's excess demand, pressure to increase price. So here, the same case. At this point, okay, there's a pressure to increase price because demand is higher than supply. So price will rise up to $5, okay, to the new equilibrium level. So this equilibrium level is at a new supply curve. This supply curve moved from here to here. Of course, demand curve has not moved. So this is the attained now equilibrium curve, where at a higher price, 3,005 units are being sold now, and also 3,500 are being consumed, okay? So what can we say about this change? In this change, the shift of supply is towards the left. That means there's a decrease, there's a fall in quantity demanded, okay? So the shift is towards it's backward, right? Backward or leftward, right? So the shift is backward. Demand has not shifted, but equilibrium price, what happened to the equilibrium price? Equilibrium price was here, was $3. Now equilibrium price is $5. So the new equilibrium price has increased, has risen, is higher, okay? How about the quantity? Equilibrium quantity was 5,000. Now equilibrium quantity is 3,500. So equilibrium price has declined. So what can we conclude? Whenever there's a shift of supply curve towards like backward or leftward, the equilibrium price increases, but the equilibrium quantity declines, is it? Okay, so what happens to the shift in demand? So shift in demand, in this case, is from this to this point. Shift in demand, again, could use, here the demand has increased. This could be an increase in income. Increase in income results in an increase, a shift of demand towards towards the rightward side, right? So, or upward, right? Upward. So the upward shift of the demand supply. So this was our equilibrium point. So at equilibrium point, units, let's say here is, this is a number of houses, okay? So at this price, maybe, let's say 100 units, okay? I wish I was able to scribble down here. I don't know if that's possible. I am not sure, but I'm gonna try. Oh, great. Okay, so this one here, this quantity here, let's say you are able to sell 1,000 houses, okay, 1,000 houses at this point of equilibrium, okay? Now, if people's income increases, okay, to this point from here to here, so we want to know what happens at same price. So at same price, at same previous equilibrium level, okay, if people's income increase and the price of a house is still the same, more people will buy more houses, right? So here you have, let's say, 5,000 houses, okay? So 5,000 houses will be bought at the same price. But this is not equilibrium point because it's not interacting with the supply side, okay? Where is supply at this point? Supply is here. So there is a gap here at this price. With the new shift of demand, there is a gap, okay, from this supply curve and demand, right? At this price. So here, which one is higher than? This is what sellers of houses, the houses on sale by the suppliers, house owners, is 1,000 units, right? Suppliers are supplying 1,000 units, but buyers, people who are willing to demand, people have incomes now. There are so many, there are 5,000 people. So again, we have excess demand. Okay, we have excess demand. Okay, so we have excess demand, we need to now move, okay? When there's excess demand, there's pressure to increase price. So there'll be pressure to increase price because there are people who are willing to pay more. So there'll be increase in price, okay, up to this point here. So at this point is whereby this has now, at this new price, we have 2,000 houses, okay, a new equilibrium point. 200 houses are going to be sold by homeowners, suppliers, but also it's the exact number that people will also buy. Okay, so this is going to be a new equilibrium point. So what does it mean? Okay, what does it mean? So when the shift in demand curve, okay, there's a positive shift, or is it upward? When there's an upward shift in demand curve, equilibrium point, what happens to equilibrium? Equilibrium price. So just move from first equilibrium to new equilibrium. What happened to equilibrium price? Equilibrium price was this much. Now it's this much. This is the new equilibrium. So equilibrium price, okay, equilibrium price has increased, right? Has increased. When equilibrium price increases, what happens to the quantity demanded equilibrium? So quantity demanded here, earlier at equilibrium, it was 1,000 units. The new equilibrium point is now 2,000. So we see that the new equilibrium quantity demanded, the equilibrium quantity demanded has also increased. Okay, but remember, here it's only shift of demand. So supply hasn't shifted. Okay, it's only the demand. I hope this is very clear. Okay, so let's move to when there is a simultaneous shift. So by simultaneous shift, what we mean is like that. Supply, before you only had supply and demand and your equilibrium point. So this is your equilibrium, right? Very peaceful, very clean. But then stuff happens. So here we see supply increased. Okay, something happened, weather condition was good, or cost of production decreased, so your supply increased. Okay, and then demand also increased, so also people's incomes also have increased. So what happens? Okay, so from here to here, this is now a new, you do the same thing as how we have been talking, what causes, so you start slowly, like when supply moves from here to here. Okay, so from here to here, you can start with supply, then price, you start at the same price. What happens? So if at the same price, if supply increases, that means more of quantity supplied is increased. So if this is, let's say, 1,000 units, let me use 10 so that I don't spend time using writing. So if this is 10, this could be 20 units. Okay, so due to increase in supply, cost of production, electricity is cheaper, you produce more units, so 20 units. When you produce more and the price is the same, so demand has not shifted, remember where we start. So here, this is what people demand. People demand 10 units, but you supply, because of your increase in supply, you supply 20 units. So what happens here? What happens here is that there is more supply, quantity supplied, less demand. So this is what we call excess supply. Excess supply of 10 units, okay? When there's excess supply, there is pressure to lower price. No one is buying the goods, so better decrease the price so that people can buy. So the new equilibrium point will be here, okay? So this will be a new equilibrium point, okay? So this new equilibrium point, number 2. But then, before you know it, demand has also increased, okay? So if demand has increased, that means from here, you move to this one. So people's incomes have increased. So let's say here at this new equilibrium point, you are selling 15 units and people are buying 15 units. So with the increase now in demand, okay, now price, remember price was here, okay? Price was here, okay? So at this price, if we are to extend it to the new demand, okay? Remember, from here, equilibrium to here, price has fallen, okay? Has fallen. So this is now, income has increased, people have more money, people are demanding more. So this could be 50 units or 20, 30, let's say 60 units. So now the new scenario of increasing the shift in demand has people demanding 60 units of the product. But what is being supplied here? 15 only. So there is 15 amount of goods supplied, at the new supply curve, but what is demanded is 60. So there is more demand, more than supply. So this is an excess. This is the case of excess demand. Are we together? So when there's excess demand, there will be pressure to increase price. Increase price. Okay? So we will increase price and reduce this gap to this point where they meet. So this is the new equilibrium point. So this is equilibrium 3 now. Okay? This is the final equilibrium point. So this one gives us a new equilibrium price. Okay? This is going to be the new equilibrium price. And this is going to give us a new equilibrium quantity. So this quantity could be maybe 35, okay? 35. So how do we conclude when there is a simultaneous shift? So first you have to know the shift. What is the shift? What has it happened? So the shift is that when there is an increase in the shift, the shift in supply is to the right? That means there's an increase, okay? And then there is an increase, the shift rightward, is it right upward shift, right? In the demand curve, all right? So both are like increasing features. So what happens to the equilibrium, the final equilibrium price? The final equilibrium price, what happened? This was the initial one. To move to the second, to the third. So we're looking at the third equilibrium. So the price was here. Now the price is here. So the equilibrium price has increased. Okay. And then what happened to the quantity? Okay, to the quantity, equilibrium quantity, yes? Equilibrium quantity. So the new equilibrium quantity, let's look at the first one. It was 10 units, right? But now we are here, somewhere here. So these are 35. So it has increased. Okay. So this is the total, I would say, outcomes of these changes. So you can be asked different scenarios, okay? This is how, if there's an increase in supply, that means the rightward shift, and then there's an increase in demand, the rightward. So this is the case where we had, right? We had an increase in supply and an increase in demand. What happens to the price is it increased. If you prove here, the price, yes, this is where you look at, okay? This is where there's an increase in demand, rightward shift, and then an increase in supply, right? So this one, our price has increased and quantity has increased. This is what we're talking about. Price increased and quantity increased. Another scenario is where we did at first. At first was, let's look for it. Yes, we had this, okay? This one, there is a decrease, okay, in supply, but there is no change, okay? No change in demand. Demand is the same, okay? So equilibrium price, the new equilibrium price, is it higher or lower? So the first equilibrium price was 3. Now the new is 5. So it has increased, right? How about our quantity, equilibrium quantity, new equilibrium quantity? From here, it was 5,000 units. The new equilibrium gives us 3,000. So it has decreased, right? So there is a decrease. Let's go and prove it in the chart. So lower supply, no change in demand. High, the price increases, quantity falls. So let's go here. Higher. Wait, supply was lower, right? Oops. So there was decrease in supply, and then there was no change in demand. So we come here, right? Price increased, quantity demanded decreased. I think it's the same as what we got there. So you should know how to get all these scenarios. Where there's a question mark, it means that one thing can cause an increase and the other one causes a decrease. So it depends on which change is larger than the other. So whenever there's a question mark, that means one or the other, they go in opposite direction. So you need to know now which one is higher than the other. But these others are just already, they are going to be like that because it's just one thing changing and the other one does not change. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the whole concept. You need to kind of just know these things. What happens when one thing changes? What is the impact? Where's the direction? How they interact? What are the factors? What happens when the change is along the curve and when it shifts? So this will be very useful to help you kind of grasp all the important concepts in demand and supply. And then we will go now to the next part where the next part of the topic where we now look at the application of demand and supply, like real life issues. So we look at elasticity. It's just a simple one. So just how to kind of compute how it's calculated, as well as price flows, how the government control prices, and affect, or perhaps I would say, interfere with the demand and supply forces. Okay, so this is it. Yeah, just make sure you practice a lot of these curves. Don't cram. Do not go into these curves, cram these factors, cram the directions of the arrows. You're going to get wrong because every trick will get you in the wrong direction, because it's about reasoning, it's about understanding. So it's best to invest time into really understanding how does it work, how does it happen, so that you don't mix it up. So let's end here for now, and then we'll proceed afterwards.